Hey everyone, welcome back to another video by Camroom 5. We have used the word diffusion and osmosis more or less in the previous videos. Now it's good time to talk about what these processes are. So we'll divide the cell transport systems into two categories. First being passive transport and the second being active transport. Passive, like the name implies, it does not require energy, doesn't need any energy or ATP. By the way, ATP means adenosine triphosphate. It's a molecule that provides energy. Active transport does need energy, or you can say ATP. Passive transport means that particles are moving down the concentration gradient. Or there's another thing for osmosis that we say, water potential gradient. So particles move down the concentration gradient or the water potential gradient in passive, meaning from higher to lower, and in active transport they move against the concentration or water potential gradient. Passive transport means diffusion and osmosis, but diffusion has two further categories. Diffusion could be simple diffusion for cells, or it could be the facilitated category of diffusion. Now this is mainly AS level, but even O level students need a understanding of this. Simple diffusion means simple small molecules that easily pass through the cell membrane. They move from higher concentration region to a lower concentration region. It is for simple and small molecules which can pass through the cell membrane without hurdles. Facilitated diffusion works for polar substances which are water soluble. Because water soluble substances can't pass through the cell membrane easily. So they need supporting substances. They need channel proteins or they need carrier proteins which are on the cell membrane. Let's see, this is the cell membrane structure. The dark blue portion on the inside is the intracellular fluid. Intracellular means it's the cell cytoplasm. The light blue liquid on the outside of the cell membrane is the extra, or you can say the intercellular fluid, which means all the liquids outside the cell. Cell membrane provides a barrier, a boundary between these two fluids. The cell membrane is a lipid bilayer which has a major component of lipids. It's semi-permeable membrane because it does not allow every substance to pass through. There are some protein molecules embedded within the cell membrane. These are known as the channel proteins or the carrier proteins. They help in the movement of substances which can pass through the cell membrane directly. So you can see they have multiple shapes, multiple structures, and the biochemistry of these membranes is also different. This purple molecule, let's say this is carbon dioxide, apparently, it has a higher concentration outside according to my diagram and lower inside. This purple molecule, apparently it's glucose here, it also has higher concentration outside and lower concentration inside. This green molecule on the other hand, let's say it is sodium ion. It has a high concentration inside and low concentration outside. Carbon dioxide is a simple molecule. So carbon dioxide does not need support from these channel and carrier proteins. It can easily pass through the cell membrane. This is what we call simple diffusion. So carbon dioxide or simple molecules like oxygen gas, like perhaps urea, they can move through simple diffusion. In simple diffusion, there's no need for channel and carrier proteins. It's a simple movement from higher to lower concentration. So let's write that it doesn't need energy, number one, because it's a diffusion process. Number two, it's from higher concentration to lower concentration like any other diffusion process. It's down the concentration gradient. And we already said there's no need for channel or carrier protein. When we talk about glucose, glucose is a water-soluble substance. It can't pass through the cell membrane directly. It will need help from these channel or carrier proteins, which are specifically for glucose. They will allow the diffusion of glucose, but only through these channels, not directly through the cell membrane. That is why we call it diffusion, but we call it facilitated diffusion. So here, glucose, or for example any other polar or water-soluble substances like amino acids and other water-soluble substances, these ones pass through a specific channel and carriers. So we call it facilitated diffusion because these channels and carriers facilitate the diffusion process. Moving on. It's again a diffusion process, so it uses channel and carrier proteins which are present on the cell surface membrane, specific for glucose or any other molecule. It doesn't need energy, so using channel does not mean they need energy. It is still a diffusion process. Third important point, it stops if all the channels or carriers are occupied. So if there is limited number of carrier and channels, it is going to be a problem for us. The last process for sodium ions you can see is also using carrier proteins and channel proteins, but this is against the concentration gradient. So let's say that sodium ions or any particle moves against the concentration gradient. Let's say the cell says I need more sodium ions, even though I have more on the inside, I still need more. What do? Then we do active transport. So it's against the concentration gradient through active transport. It uses energy. This energy comes from the respiration process, the aerobic respiration, and it is from low concentration region to a high concentration region. So these are the three important processes for the movement of solute particles. A graphical study will help us understand this idea more. For example, I'm talking about a root hair cell. Let's say the outside concentration is plotted on the x-axis, and I'm putting rate of influx, which means rate of moving inside, on the y-axis. So this is the mole per second, how many moles are coming inside per unit second. When the concentration outside is very high, I repeat, when the concentration outside is high, it means it can easily move inside through diffusion. So the movement inside direction would be really quick. But if the concentration outside is not very high, the movement inside will not be very high because diffusion might not happen really quick. You can see the graph looks something like this. Why is it becoming 0 around a concentration of 0.5? The ions are moving inside when the outside concentration was high and inside was low through diffusion. But around 0.5 mole per decimeter cube concentration, the concentration inside outside is same. And that is why more ions cannot come inside through diffusion. So when the concentration outside is low, diffusion can't happen. When the concentration outside is high, diffusion will happen. And when the concentration outside inside is same, it is an equilibrium, which means movement inside is cancelled by the movement outside. We will talk more about this in the upcoming videos. Stay tuned, guys. Thanks.